Okay, well, I think it's about 10 after, so we don't have a quorum, but I will still call the meeting to order and we'll do a roll call. Since we don't have a quorum yet, we'll skip the voting items and we will move on with the business items, which none of which take votes or official action. So even if we never get a quorum tonight, we'll still do the meeting, and it'll be recorded, and people who missed it can go back and watch the discussion and watch the update. So I will call this meeting to order. It's about 7:10. This is the Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Commission here at the City of Urbana on Tuesday, July 19th, and we will have a roll call.
Brandon Bowersox,
Present.
Susan Jones, Gary Zico, Michelle Guerra, Audrey Ishii, Brock Rosenshine, Morgan Johnston, Brian Lake, Ray Spooner. Thank you.
We welcome our newest member, Ray Spooner, here to join the commission. So what we will do is skip the approving the agenda and approving the minutes since we don't have a quorum, but we'll continue on with all of the update items tonight under Section 6, New Business. And we have a number of project updates that Brad Bennett is here to tell us about. For people who don't know, Brad is one of our great employees in Public Works who is an engineer and is replacing Jennifer Selby in the role of sort of helping with these bike and ped projects, getting them designed and built and constructed, and he'll be here on the commission serving us in this new role. So welcome, Brad. And go ahead and take it away.
Thank you. Appreciate being able to come and talk to you this evening. The first item I had on there was the Main Street resurfacing project. And this is a pretty large project. We're talking about from basically Cedar Street to Scottswood Avenue, or Scottswood Drive, I'm sorry. A portion of it was completed last year from Vine Street to Grove Street, and the bike lanes were installed in that section of it. But the remainder of it is scheduled to be resurfaced and have bike lanes added in 2012. Where they are status-wise with the project is they've are in the process of negotiating with Clark Dietz, an engineering firm, to have them do the engineering design on it, which will take place, over this fall and winter, with the expectation of bidding the project out in the spring and construction starting in summer 2012, and the construction wrapping up fall of 2012. So that's kind of where we're at with that project. And as we get into it and actually get some design drawings and preliminary layouts, we'll be glad to share that with BPAC and get some of your input on that. For the next item on there, the Boneyard Creek improvement projects and the Broadway Avenue and Ray Street streetscape projects, I have a little presentation here I'll walk you through and kind of show you. And some of you have seen this before. I know Gary's seen it through the Sustainability Committee. I know Brandon has seen it through the City Council presentation. But just want to show you kind of the two key components you're going to be interested on in that project is a multi-use path that's going to be installed along the Boneyard Creek between Grigg Street and Broadway Avenue. And then as part of the Broadway Avenue streetscape, we're going to put that road on a diet and add bike lanes and bump out the kind of the parkway along it and include some additional landscape plantings and trees. But with that, I'll delve into it. But this is kind of existing conditions. Kind of the project limits on the Boneyard Creek are from Grigg Street here all the way up to Broadway Avenue. This is segment 3 of 5. The city back in 2006 hired a landscape architectural firm to develop Boneyard Creek improvement plan for basically from Main Street to University Avenue. They broke into 5 segments, and this is segment 3, or kind of the middle segment on it. But this is kind of what the existing conditions are. You can see, Broadway Avenue here is a very wide pavement. Like I mentioned, we're going to look at putting that on a road diet to add some bike lanes and expand our parkways there. Ray Street's also going to get a streetscape improvement, and you can see we're going to actually be removing some of the sheet piling. Some of the paved parking surfaces here are going to disappear to create more of a linear park. This is what the proposed improvements are. Once again, project limits Grigg Street down here, Broadway Avenue over here, Ray Street here. This is the existing Norfolk Southern rail line. This is a wooden trestle bridge over here. A lot of people don't even realize it's there. A couple of key highlights, Silver Creek Restaurant is up here. The school district building is down here. Kind of focusing specifically on what some of the improvements include. Like I mentioned, we're going to be pulling out the sheet pile and creating more of a meandering stream through there. You can see there's, planters to provide a soothing, vegetative, softened perspective of the channel. There'll be access coming off of Ray Street. You can see there's this path here that comes down along the creek. This would be all ADA compliant slopes. It's a multi-use path. It's proposed to be about 8 foot wide, so both pedestrians and bicyclists could use it. You see there's some stepping stones across the stream so you could get to the north side, which would be kind of more of a native vegetated area. The path continues under the Ray Street Bridge. The existing Ray Street Bridge would be removed and replaced. And then it continues up here towards the existing railroad bridge. That existing trestle bridge would be upgraded to make it a pedestrian bridge. They'd be putting planking on it to provide a smooth walking surface, as well as guardrails to prevent anyone from falling off of it. And it would be extended over its present length to connect into kind of a plaza area up here by the station theater. There's also pedestrian access for that doesn't meet ADA compliance for people that want to step down some kind of rock terrace. And you'll see these. I have some 3D perspectives I'm going to show on both sides of Ray Street. But that path continues up and then actually goes under the existing railroad culvert. Once again, this is the rail line down here. You can see it continues along the south side of the stream and eventually comes up and ties into Broadway Avenue. Once again, there is some stepping stones that pedestrians can use to walk across the stream and access the kind of the greenhouse area of the Silver Creek restaurant back there. And these are some of the 3D perspectives. This first one would be standing on the Grigg Street Bridge. There's a little lookout that people can utilize to look into the stream. This is that path I mentioned that comes down right along the edge of the creek and goes under the Ray Street Bridge. This would be standing on the Broadway Avenue Bridge, looking back towards Ray Street. You can see this is the railroad bridge here. The UCSD pipe crossing is here. But, once again, focusing, you've got the multi-use path down along there, and you've got that creek crossing. This next one is on the Griggs Bridge looking northeast. And once again, you can kind of see this trestle bridge coming across. This is Ray Street right here. I'm sorry, I have this wrong. This is actually standing on the railroad bridge, looking back towards the Ray Street Bridge. But this is that trestle bridge that will connect off of Ray Street and allow pedestrians to come over and access this plaza area next to the station theater. And this one is standing on the Ray Street Bridge, looking back towards Grigg Street. This is Ray Street over here. Here's that Grigg Street scenic lookout. Once again, you can see you've got your path connecting up with Ray Street that comes down and right along the creek edge. Now, the path will sit about 3 foot above the water surface on average. It varies along the length of the path, but that provides a margin of safety. It'll only be the more extreme rain events that come up and cover the path, and it gives pedestrians and bicyclists adequate time to get out of the area in the event of a rainfall. And then this one is looking, if you're standing on the Ray Street Bridge, looking north down towards the channel. These are those stepping stones across, so Ray Street would be kind of back over here. And you can see you've got the ADA path that kind of swings down and along here, but people can also kind of utilize these terraced stepping areas just to walk down to the creek. This is standing on the path looking towards the Ray Street Bridge. You can see how the path connects under the bridge. You can also see these terrace stones that people can access off of Ray Street to get down to the creek. This is looking at the pedestrian trestle bridge coming across here, the railroad culverts in the background. And you can see how the path kind of extends through the railroad culvert. This would be standing on the wooden trestle pedestrian bridge looking back towards Ray Street. This is the Ray Street bridge. This is the trestle bridge. This would be standing a little further downstream looking back towards the trestle bridge crossing. This is the railroad bridge or culvert over here. And you can see this is, once again, you have kind of a terraced access to get down to the creek. This is going towards Broadway Avenue is here in the background. These are the stepping stones across the Stone Creek. And this is the Broadway Avenue bridge over here and that path tying back up to it at grade. And this is just kind of an example along the creek edge what they're anticipating. You can see the path sits higher than the water, but they're using kind of a natural looking quarried stone to kind of provide both erosion protection for the creek bank, but also kind of a terraced way for you to get down and connect with the creek. And then focusing a little bit on the Broadway Avenue streetscape, like I said, this is consisting primarily of a road diet, reducing some of the pavement width, adding landscape plantings. You can see we're adding a bump out here down at Water Street. We're also looking at including revamping this existing city park here. And you'll see it more on the next picture, but you can see we're looking at basically 2 lanes, vehicular lanes, along with 2 bike lanes, and then also accommodating some on-street parking. But we are looking at significantly increasing the parkways along there. And what the consultant did on this particular side is I had them hatch what the new bike lanes would be and show where the new center lines would be. So that's what's appearing there in yellow hatching is the bike lanes, and the solid yellow line is the new center line. And then kind of here in the dark green, that is some bioswales that we'll be putting in as part of the project as kind of a green infrastructure way to deal with the stormwater. Excuse me. And maybe I should go back one. This is the section from water going up towards the railroad tracks. And then this is the section from the railroad tracks going up towards University Avenue. For Broadway, all the improvements are going to be between Water Street and University Avenue. On Ray Street, they'll start at Griggs and head north up through University Avenue, and we'll actually look at replacing a little bit of replacing Ray Street on between University Avenue and Park Street with new pavement as well. And this, once again, the bike lanes are hatched in yellow. You can see the solid line demonstrates what the new center line is. You can see the bioswale stormwater treatment areas. I did get some comments from Jennifer in revisions to pass along to the consultant, because I know the configuration up here at University Avenue isn't correctly depicted as far as the bike lanes. So once we get some further along the design, we'll share what the bike lane configuration is going to look precisely like with BPAC and get some input from you there on that. And this is kind of a cross-section showing what the new Broadway Avenue will look like. You can see you've got vehicular lanes as well as the bike path. And in this particular cross-section, they're showing the bioswale stormwater treatment areas. In the areas where there isn't the bioswale treatment area, they accommodate on-street parking here. But you can see, we are looking at, a widened parkway that'll accommodate some street trees and, aesthetically pleasant landscape plantings. And with that, we've got a little 3D video I'd like to share with you. Mm-hmm. This kind of gives you the sense it's a flyover, and then it's kind of going along the path. But these are what the proposed improvements are. I apologize, the video is a little bit grainy. This is Race Street over here. This would be Griggs here. But now it's going to kind of show you coming down along the path what it looks like. Yeah, like they wanted. Yeah, this is that creek crossing. You see, this is the Race Street Bridge over here. I apologize. I don't know why it's so grainy. I thought we had a more higher definition video of this. So now we're crossing under the Race Street Bridge. You can see this is that trestle bridge that we're converting into a pedestrian bridge. And you notice it's got handrail on it, and like I mentioned, it'll have the solid planking to provide a safe traveling surface on it. This is the railroad culvert or bridge here. We're going to actually be filling in one of the culvert tunnels in order to provide the multi-use path through there. And then this is as we head back towards Broadway Avenue. The creek crossing over by Silver Creek. Then up to Broadway Avenue. So we're very excited about this project. We think it's going to be a real amenity to the downtown area, along with the streetscape projects. Will really be an enhancement for the downtown area, while creating, improved pedestrian and bicycle access in that area. Give you a little bit about the schedule. The final design is anticipated to be completed in January 2012. They're looking at bidding the project out in March 2012, and construction could start in spring 2012. And due to the vast nature of the project, it probably would not be completed until 2014. And they'd probably stage it where they would do the Race Street and the Boneyard Creek improvements first and wait till those were completed before they would do the Broadway Avenue, because you wouldn't want to close down two major transportation corridors to the downtown area at the same time. And it'll be challenging enough because the Main Street project will be going on in 2012 as well. So there's going to, unfortunately, be a lot of construction downtown in 2012. Are there any questions on the Boneyard Creek project or the Race Street streetscape or the Broadway Avenue?
Questions? Gary?
Well, yeah, just a couple of things. Just the Main Street, from where to where we're talking now?
It would be from Water Street. And if you want, I can pull those slides back up real quick.
Main Street, the Main Street resurfacing.
Oh, Main Street?
Yeah.
It's going to start over at Cedar Street, which is kind of where it has a Y connection, where it splits with Springfield Avenue, all the way out to Scottswood Drive, which would be past Weaver Park.
So this is the downtown all?
Yeah, it's
The
a
whole
fairly
thing.
long stretch of.
So that's about 2 miles. Okay.
Mhm.
And then a question on the Boneyard thing. Is there any spot there where there would be like a amphitheater or a place where people would do music, or is that part of the design? It didn't.
Well, there are some public gathering spaces. There's not a specific amphitheater area. Let me pull this up real quick. I point out a couple of the.
Where people could sort of sit and.
Yeah, I mean that's a little bit.
There.
What these terraces were designed for was to create a seating surface that people could sit on these stone terraces. This is kind of a grassy knoll or hill, as well as this over here, where those provide kind of public access areas. There also is going to be and it's hard to see from this picture, but there's kind of going to be a plaza area up against the station theater. We're looking at using some of the recycled street pavers, to create kind of a hardscaped area that people can set chairs out on, or utilized. So we don't have any real defined amphitheater type seating, but between the terraces and the grassed areas, we're anticipating those could be utilized for public spaces and gatherings.
And if there were some type of official musical event, though, with electricity, is there going to be any electricity available?
Well, there will be lighting down the channel. We'll
Lighting.
probably look at, you know, along with those lighting fixtures, providing, you know, some electrical outlets that could be utilized.
Because otherwise people start dragging in generators, and that's not so
Yeah.
nice. Okay. And then a final thing was on the details of the bike lane stuff on Broadway and Main Street. Now, I get really picky. I'm down to 6 inches here and there. I think it can make a difference.
Mhm.
Should we just wait until Clark Dietz comes up with stuff? I mean,
Are you talking on Main Street then?
both of them, wherever there's going to be bike lanes, particularly along parking. I really like to.
Well, I'll point out on both of them, Jennifer has laid out a lot of the preliminary design on it.
Okay.
So she's given them that as a guidance to work from. And really, until they get, you know, on both these designs, they're relatively early in the design process, so they haven't worked out a lot of the details yet.
Okay.
So as they get further along in the process and we have some details to come to you with, we will.
Okay. Okay, that's good.
I mean, at this point, we just don't have it laid out in really great
Yeah,
detail
well,
yet.
I've had a lot of interaction with Jennifer already on Main Street things,
Mhm.
so I guess some of that would be reflected already.
And I know on both of them, you know, her preliminary design layout stuff's been transferred to the consultants, so they
Okay.
have that.
Any other questions? Or Ray?
There's not so much a question. It's sort of an observation.
Oh, and I'll tell you, the way these things work is if you push the little green button, then, or the gray part, then the green will light up, and then people at home can hear for the recording later.
It's not so much a question as an observation on life in general, but there's a pedestrian path that runs parallel to Green Street, all the way up to First, I believe, and I walk it every morning, and it's become quite the mecca for homeless people. I don't know if there's any way, anything we can do to prevent that from happening here, but you know, like I said, it's not a question, it's really just an observation of.
Yeah, we are
things
considering
that-
that as well as some safety issues. One of the things we're going to try to do to discourage people from using it after dark is we're anticipating that the lighting, you know, for most of the park down the channel will turn off at a certain time at night. So it won't be lit all night as a way to discourage people from using it after a certain set hour. You know, with the restaurant there and the theater there, it might not be till 11, 12 o'clock that, you know, that lighting shuts off, but that might be one way. And we're also very concerned about the potential of vandalism. We're going to have a lot of vertical surfaces, a lot of retaining walls. So we are taking that into consideration as far as what surface treatments we use to, you know, be able to discourage people.
Well, you have the tunnel, and
Mhm.
that's usually a magnet. Because on that retention area that they just built in downtown Champaign, I think they deliberately avoided. There's paths on one side and there's paths on the other side, but there's no tunnel underneath connecting them, which I believe they didn't put one for that reason. But
Yeah.
anyway,
Okay. Well, we appreciate the input.
One of the questions I had about the Boneyard project was what your current thinking is on how we prevent modal conflicts between pedestrians walking the path and cyclists or skateboarders or rollerbladers. It looks like a beautiful place, and like Meadowbrook Park or like the Green Street path, it's the kind of place where if you have a cyclist that's really whizzing down there trying to get somewhere, that'll really be a conflict with a group of pedestrians who are walking the path slowly. And what do has there been any thought about that, or is there any thought of signage and how we market or sign it and tell people, is it a pedestrian preference zone that you're also allowed to use your bike on or skate on, or is it a total multimodal, total shared use and everybody has the same priority and you should just respect each other kind of zone? Do you have any sense for that mode conflict? And
We haven't really dwelled into that level of detail yet. I don't know how heavily it'll be used by bicyclists because it goes such a short distance. I think as the other segments get developed and it maybe connects all the way from University to Maine, it might be more attractive to bicyclists, particularly maybe the commuting traffic. I think most of the bicycles that would use it now would be more in the sightseeing or, family cycling. It would be a lot of kids. So I don't anticipate a heavy bicycle use on it. We have looked at the skating concern, and there's a concern with that actually damaging, some of the stonework around there. And we actually are incorporating elements of the design that'll discourage grinding. I'm not familiar with skating, but our sub-consultant knows something about skating, and there's a way that they can design it to discourage, skaters from grinding up on the benches or some of the rock ledges that'll be incorporated into that, and they plan to incorporate that.
Great.
Every surface on the U of I, every corner, concrete corner has steel blocks put in them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To prevent that.
Yeah.
They say, unfortunately, it can actually discolor the rocks from I don't know if it's the rubber coming off their tires or the plastic coming off the board.
Yeah.
It'll actually discolor the rocks and benches.
Yeah.
So it is a significant problem, but we are working on some design elements that'll prevent that.
Yeah. I think in terms of bikes that I would tend to agree, it's such a short distance and it has so many level changes and loop-to-loops that as at least the kind of cycling I do, I mean, I'm more a transportation cyclist personally than a recreation cyclist, but I couldn't imagine biking just that stretch because it's so much turns and up and down. I would love to walk there, but I imagine at first we won't have many conflicts. Rebecca?
I'm guessing it would be similar to the way that the Boneyard in Champaign, the new 2nd Street Basin is being used, and I ride through that frequently, but if there's anyone on the path, I'll stay on the street and only go on the path and just because it's fun. It's curvy and going down and up, but if there are pedestrians on it, I avoid it and go around it. So I imagine that bicyclists actually trying to get somewhere would avoid using it if there are pedestrians there.
Any other questions or feedback about the Boneyard project? Okay, Brad, what is next?
We'll move on to High Cross Road. This is another multi-use path starting at Windsor Road and proceeding north up to what I think now is currently Po Boys. Some of the older folks might remember it as TK Wendell's. But the project currently is out for bid. They'll open bids on it on August 5th. They're anticipating starting construction probably late fall this year, and then the project is scheduled to be completed by June 29th, 2012. And this is a project that's funded in part by a grant from the state of Illinois, along with some local match. So that project's proceeding. We anticipate it being done by basically summer of 2012.
And all of that, I know the last time we saw the project, we talked about the asphalt surface rather than the concrete and the bridge and things. I assume basically the project is the same as it was
Yeah,
last
there
time
haven't been any significant changes to it.
Okay. Any questions about that one? Okay.
And then the final update I have is on the Philo Road bike lanes. And this was from Pennsylvania to Washington Street. We widened the street there on Philo to accommodate the addition of a bike lane. And I'm pleased to report that was completed in June. In fact, that was one of the projects Jennifer wrapped up right before she left. So it's done. I see bicyclists using it, and it looks good.
And it connects to Washington, the Washington bike lanes that got striped in December in the horrible snow season we had.
Yeah.
And now that the snow's gone, you can use that. And I definitely think it's helped to have connectivity from the Philo lanes to the Washington lanes. And maybe it's because the Washington lanes go for such a long distance, or that's just a popular place. I really feel like as I go down that stretch, I see more people biking on Washington Street than I used to. And I think it's a good, safe corridor for bikes and cars to share. So I think that has made a big difference in the fact that Philo now connects to something, helps in the public's understanding of what the bike network is all about. You know, when it was just one little block of bike lanes on Philo Road, maybe it didn't make a lot of sense. But now that people see that it actually was going to connect to something, I think it gets more use and it makes more sense to the public. So.
Mm-hmm. And that's all I had for project updates for now.
Any questions about the Philo Road or any of the others? Okay, hearing none. Next we have some bike planning activity updates from Rebecca. And you're going to tell us first about Bike to Work and School Day.
Indeed. We had our second annual Bike to Work Day on May 3rd. CU Bike to Work, and this year it was Bike to Work and School Day. We partnered with CU Safe Routes to School project, so we included school in there. Over 900 people participated, and we actually partnered this year more broadly with more organizations throughout the community so that we could not only share the work but reach further into the community. So we partnered with the WILL, Illinois Public Media, and so they did an advertising campaign for us, which we'll be able to use in future years. We'll just change the date in the different radio and television ads and be able to reuse those in future, which is fantastic. They played on WILL television and radio, as well as UPTV, Champaign television, and we also had ads on another, I can't remember the name at the moment, of the radio, a series of radio stations whose name escapes me, I'm sorry at the moment. But we did have, I thought I would just give you some of the statistics of kind of who participated and some of the information that we gathered, the data we gathered from the registration forms. We did ask people to register online, and we asked them a number of questions trying to gather data that would be helpful for different bicycle planning activities. And so what we found out was that 44% of the people that registered were from Urbana, 50% were from Champaign, and the rest were from Savoy and then other, Rantoul, St. Joseph, and so on, which seems a long way to bicycle, so they perhaps just did it the one day. But, and for destination, 54% of people that registered were heading to Urbana, a location in Urbana, and 45% to a location in Champaign, 1% to Savoy, 1% to other. This year, one of the differences this year between this year and last year, which was the first year, we had only 4 bicycle stations. The first year we had 1 in downtown Urbana, 1 in downtown Champaign, 1 on the university campus, and 1 in Savoy. This year we had 10. We had 1 in downtown Urbana, 1 in downtown Champaign, 3 on campus, 1 at Wolfram Research, which is near State and Kirby Avenue in Champaign, 1 at Parkland College. There was 1 again in Savoy, and then we also had 1 at the Brookins Center on East Washington here in Urbana, and the Urbana Middle and High School together had a station. So people were much more spread out. The most popular stations were 3 of the stations from last year. They were the downtown Urbana, the downtown Champaign, and one of the campus stations, the one at Green Street and Wright Street. Those were by far the most popular, but we did have pretty good participation at all of those other stations as well. We asked a question on the registration form about whether people had biked to work before, and 15% said that they had either never biked to work before or they had only biked to work to prepare for Bike to Work Day. So we reached, that's really the target population for the event. It's to get people to try biking that one time to work, to understand that it is a possibility for them. And so we did reach, 15% of the people we reached were people that had not done it or only in practice for the event. 43% of the people who registered regularly bike to work 2 times a week or more. So the numbers were higher this year for people that had never biked to work than they were for last year. Last year we had a higher percentage of people that are regular bicycling commuters because, I guess because it was a new event, and also we didn't have as much media exposure. This year we had more media exposure, so we reached a larger audience that didn't bike. And then 55% of the people who registered had not participated in the event the year before. So 45% had, but 55% were new participants, which I would imagine that number would be pretty high every year, even when it's had a long-standing history just because of the turnover that we have in town because of the university. And on that day, we actually took 285 cars off of our streets. So 285 of those people that registered drive alone to work usually. So that's pretty impressive, I think. And I have seen some of the T-shirts from the event walking around town, so which is always a good thing. And then we also asked people what would improve their bike commuting. And 72% said that their bicycle commuting would be improved by having more on-street bike lanes. 35% said more recreational trails. 31% said better or more bike parking. 5% said safe cycling classes, and then the other 22% were it was a combination of different types of strategies. And then the last question we asked was whether or not people bike for recreation and or to run errands, and 91% of people said yes to run errands or recreational biking. They do. And 9% said no. So that 9%, I imagine, were part of the people who had not biked before to work. So that's pretty impressive, I thought, and we'll be doing that again next year. So, yes.
Gary?
I missed the number on which these percentages are based. Did you mention that?
It's just over 900. I didn't actually print the exact response, but it was just over 900 people in total. So we had
That registered.
well, we had 700, and I think it was around 780 people register online beforehand. And then we closed the registration. The event was on a Tuesday. We closed the registration on the Friday so that we could divide the incentives for each of the bike stations. And then we had people register at the events. So.
Okay.
So that was 900 actual participants showed up.
Right.
Yeah.
And then when you think about it, I mean, a lot of people would bike on that day because they heard about the event, but wouldn't understand why it was so important to register. Because they think, well, I'm biking, I'm doing what I was asked, and so we don't have any way of counting them. We did this year, we did try to, when we were interviewed by the media and we were giving information to the radio and television stations, we did try to stress the importance of registering and explain that it would be helpful in future grant applications and in future planning activities and so on. So that might be as well why we had a higher percentage registered as well.
Ray?
Just a quick question. Since
Yes.
it was so successful, has there been any thought on expanding it? I mean, you don't want to do work at the stations every day, but just bike to work week or month?
I personally have tried to see if there would be interest even just within the city of Urbana employees, because we have a very good turnout, because I cajole all of the people I know that work here to participate and see if they'd be interested in having it once a month, for example, in the summer. And so I think those are possibilities. We don't have any official staff working on this type of thing, and that's a difficulty because putting this together took a lot of work. We are talking about ways of funding maybe a part-time position that would reside somewhere that all of the agencies, so Urbana and Champaign, the MTD, the county, Savoy, that all different agencies could contribute to, and to a funded position that would work on different bicycle activities, so education programs, events such as Bike to Work Day and so on. And so if we had someone in a role like that, then they would be more likely to be able to pull that off. But it would be, I think, maybe if you pulled off something that was a much smaller scale that you somehow repeated. So even if you didn't have, for example, the bike stations, but you just had a little media campaign going out maybe the last Friday of every month or the first Tuesday of every month in the summer months, that I think something like that would be possible. And we have talked about it, but by the time we get done with the event and have our wrap-up meeting, we're all so tired of the extra work that we haven't really gotten any further with that.
Just throwing out suggestions. Last year, the University Extension organised the Moonwalk, and that just got people out walking like maniacs, and just, I don't know how much work, probably a lot of work actually, but something like, just like, if over the course of a month, how much time do you spend riding a bicycle?
Yeah, it's a good
Mars ride.
point. Yeah.
Mars, we can go farther than the moon.
Yeah, true.
I mean, there's a lot of peripheral benefits that you don't even think about. Like, you just walk into the grocery store. I carry my bag, so I'm not going to load up on $300 worth of groceries because I'm only going to take what I can carry. Things like that, I put gas in the car maybe once a month.
It's things like that. I think our partnership with Illinois Public Media, that's something that it would be useful to explore with them because they would be able to get the word out. That's one problem that we have is it was really hard for us to last year to advertise the event before the actual day. So we had all the television stations and the newspaper and the radio stations interested in it, 2 or 3 days beforehand, but we needed people to register beforehand and to participate in events we had leading up to it, and we found that last year very challenging. And this year, Illinois Public Media helped us with running public service announcements for kind of a month, on and off, for a month before the event. And so if they could partner with us again on something similar, like a version of the Moonwalk, that would be possible. And it might not be too much work. It depends on things like the incentives. That was the incentives in the bike stations are what make it logistically a lot of work. Getting, trying to figure out how many people are going to be in each place and getting each place food and drinks and things like that. So if you were able to contain it to one actual public event, but have a month-long campaign or something, that might be
I think
possible.
the biggest part was maintaining the website and then putting up, you've got like 50 or 60 or however many teams submitting numbers every week that you have to sort of put up.
Yeah.
But
Well, with our website, we had found a wonderful intern, a student, who did the website for us, and then we kind of had to share things like we were getting questions via email and so on, and we had to share those out between all of the different people that were working on it too, because it's just kind of all of that work is on top of our regular jobs, which makes it.
Yeah.
Did a lot of work over my lunch hour. I didn't take lunch for about a month beforehand, so.
I guess, I agree with Ray that the Moonwalk might be an interesting model to look at as we try to build this each year. It could let us expand the event without having to do the stations and all of that physical setup. And if we still just had one bike to work and school day where there were stations, but then after that there was an ongoing, for a month or for the summer, a team-based thing like the Moonwalk where you don't have to do any more physical events, but where people can form their own teams and make a commitment with their friends or their coworkers, and they can participate and do that on their own, but we don't have to be so involved every day in getting truckloads of things here and there.
Yeah.
It's at least one model that could grow the event without growing the...
Right. The other thing we did try last year and this year, which is kind of in the same vein, is that sending letters to the larger employers in town and trying to get them to start something within their organization. And so that we weren't really successful, but it might be that we didn't know the right people to contact. And we did have a brown bag with Carl, and Carl did have the participating in the event and in the brown bag and in a couple of other events leading up to it as part of their point system for getting a reduced insurance rate. So it's part of their health and wellness program. And if we could get more organizations to do things like that, then they're encouraging their employees to participate, so that does the advertising for it. So that's another way to do that. Yeah.
Also related to that is the bicycle-friendly business program. And Cynthia has sort of been trained on that and trying to get more businesses to do that. Champaign is a bicycle-friendly business. City of Champaign, City of Urbana is not. And that, they'll get points for parking and showers and incentives and all those types of things. So that fits really nicely into making a business attractive for its employees to bike in.
That's true.
Is there anything else, Rebecca, that you, on that event, feel like you all need to boost it for next year, or to, have you already started a committee to plan next year's event, or do you get a few months of relief?
We picked the date. We did that. It's based on really the academic year, so we tried to I think we've now said it's maybe the first Tuesday in May, and that'll be our fallback. Fridays don't really work for this community, even though for most people that work, they would rather it be a Friday because they can dress casually. But Fridays don't really work for the university because a lot of classes aren't being held, and so students aren't going places, professors aren't going places. So that's the week, the first week of May is the week before reading week, so the week or reading day. I'm not sure if it's a whole week anymore. It used to be.
So the first Tuesday in May.
Yes.
It's May 1st,
Yeah.
2012.
Oh, is that
May
May
Day.
1st? Well, that's an
Okay.
easy date to remember. So that'll be, we picked the date, but we haven't started the planning of it
Okay.
yet, so. Now we
Is-
have kind of the setup, it's a little bit easier, but it's still
Yeah.
just a lot of logistics, kind of in
Yeah.
February to May.
Yeah. Is there anything else the committee or the bike community or CCB or the city can do to help support you all in the planning committee for next year?
We did talk, we had a meeting internally, Brad was there, that we talked about how to, that really it would be ideal if all of the member agencies could financially contribute to an intern, a part-time intern that would do a lot of this work. And so that all of the member agencies could still participate and they would still provide staff and so on, but just have one person, one organization that would just kind of take over the main bulk of the organizing of this type of thing. And so I think we will work on that. We've discussed it at a couple of different meetings and we'll continue to do so. It's a difficult time for funding at the
Yeah.
moment, so. But if we got, there are planning students and there are students in different sustainability areas at the university that would be interested in this type of work. So
Okay.
I think there is the
Yeah.
possibility of that going forward. It just might take a while.
Okay, great. Any other questions about the Bike to Work and School Day? Okay, next up was the bike repair station.
This is very exciting. We were approached by the city of Champaign. They were planning to order some bike repair stations. Just if you want to take one and pass it on. There's one for Brad there too. So this is the brochure from the Darrow Fix-It station. And it has a bicycle pump, so it provides air, as well as some basic tools, screwdrivers, and different things. It's a stand that you're able to actually kind of hang your bike up on it and just do some basic maintenance. And these are pretty popular in larger cities, as well as on university campuses, other types of campuses like medical campuses and so on. And so the city of Champaign is going to be ordering 2. They'll have one somewhere in the downtown area. I'm not sure if they've decided an exact location yet. And another one in Campus Town. That one would be in the city's parking lot, 6th and Green, right behind 6th and Green. And the university is going to be ordering 2. One of them will be located near the Union. The other would be near the bike project on campus. The MTD is ordering 1 for the terminal in downtown Champaign. And then the city of Urbana is going to order 1. And so tonight we'd like to talk about, get some input from you on locations. So if you look at that map that you have, so that's the downtown area. And these were the ideas that we came up with in a couple of different meetings where we discussed this. So the first 2 locations are in the parking deck. There are 2 different sides of the parking deck. The number 1 is on the north side, that's right on Main Street near that bike parking area. So the second one is on the south side of the parking deck on Elm Street, also near the parking area. And both of those locations would provide cover for the Fix-It station, which would be an advantage for people in, hot sun, in the rain, trying to use it, but they would be less visible. It'd be much less visible to have the Bike Fix-It station under the parking garage, but it would provide cover. The third location in the parking garage would be adjacent to the new, I'm not sure what that's called, the MTD's bus station there on the right side. So it's on the right side, the east side of the parking garage. It's kind of looks like a white rectangle on your map. It's not identified and there's no photo, but there's that new kind of mini bus plaza there, and that would also be a possible location inside if we wanted a covered location. The third location is the north entrance of Lincoln Square Mall Village, and just outside the post office. So some of that area is part of Lincoln Square, and some of that is part of the city's right-of-way, so there could be a location there. The fourth location is near the bicycle parking area for the library, and that bike parking area is really well utilized. It would be very visible. You could see it from Race Street. You'd be able to see it going in and out of the library, approaching downtown from Race Street, from the west side of the mall, from the hotel, etc. The fifth location is near Common Ground, and that area that's actually in the photo, that is part of Lincoln Square, so I'm not sure whether or not we could get permission, whether or not the co-op would want, Common Ground Food Co-op would want it right there. We haven't spoken to them yet. They are interested in having a bike fix-it station near them, but I don't know if they would actually want it on their porch. But there are possibilities around there. And then the last one is further out into the parking lot. So that's the Lincoln Square Farmers Market bicycle parking that was put in last year. So I don't know if you know those bike parking with the corn. There's a carrot. I'm not sure what the green one is, if that's a chicken or... anyway, so that's right out in the middle of the parking lot. So we thought all of those were possibilities. There could be other possibilities that you might think of, and we just wanted your input on what you think the ideal location would be.
Yeah.
So there'd be how many?
Gary, what do you,
There'd be
we
how
can
many?
only have
Downtown Urbana,
one.
just one.
Just one.
So, but we don't have to narrow it down immediately. Maybe if you're each willing to tell me what your top two choices out of these six would be, or what you think the strengths of your favorites are, maybe we can narrow down where we are looking. Ray, what do you think?
Given the total mecca that the farmers market has become on Saturday morning, I mean, that would be my first and last choice.
I think, though, personally, I think I agree with you that is probably not probably, that's without a doubt, the most bicycles that we get in downtown Urbana ever are, every Saturday morning during the farmers market season. But that is the furthest away from the rest of the downtown area. So Common Ground in that part of that side of Lincoln Square does get a lot of traffic. But I think some of the things that we thought about were to pick the best location, a couple of things that we should think about. One would be who's going to use it. So I doubt Gary would really use it because he's got all of the equipment at home. He probably has one of these stands himself. And so it's not going to be the serious bicyclists because they would generally do their repairs and so on at home. It's going to be... my guess is that it would be in part people who have a bike in their garage that they haven't used in years because it has flat tires and it needs a little this and that, and they don't have the things to do it at home, and they think, ooh, I'd like to ride a bike, it's nice out. So if they know about it, so that would mean something where it's very visibly noticeable would be ideal. I think people that ride their bike as transportation, but not kind of exclusively. They're not everyday commuters by bike, because those are the people such as Gary that would have all of that equipment at home. So visibility, who's going to be using it, where, vandalism. Someone pointed out that it shouldn't be located too close to existing bike parking because it's providing all of the tools that you would need to actually steal bits and pieces of a bike. That's true, then. Yeah.
Gary, what do you think?
Number one, right on Main Street, the advantage of it being sheltered. But if you could have some type of indication on the street that it was there, where people could see, because there's a lot of people come by there, and that's sort of a social, bit of a social spot there by Crane Alley, and whatever, and it's just sort of like the heart of downtown, and that's sort of what I like about that. And if we're going to be having bike lanes on there too, there'll be more bicyclists coming by. They're more likely to notice it if there is some indication that it's actually in there. And I think having it sheltered will probably keep it, last longer. Otherwise, these tools are going to be out in the rain and the ice and the snow and completely frozen over. It's going to be hard to use. Now, granted, there'll be less cyclists in those conditions, but still, even the rain is going to, you don't leave your tools out in the rain usually. So if there's a way of combining the shelter and yet making them obvious, I think that would be nice.
Yeah. Rebecca, regarding the signage question, do you think when we order it, it would have the yellow bike repair little sign on it? And is there any other, if it is in the parking deck where it's kind of hidden, would we then put a little brown information sign in a small location somewhere along the, along the bike lanes or along Main Street to kind of point you inside the deck to go in there and find it? Or
we can talk to Pat Pioletti about that. He's working on signage for the parking deck now, so that and so maybe that could be incorporated into that project.
Yeah.
Or just if it's just a regular sign, it might be nice to have it as a sign that would be that would complement the other signage that's going in there.
Yeah.
Certainly, I can ask about that.
Yeah, and actually, if I remember right, in the later phases of the downtown signage, when we start to do directory type signage, where we have a list of destinations and we say, the shoe store is this way and the library is this way and the civic center is that way, the bike repair station could be one of the things on the directory potentially, but that's a Pat Paletti question, I think.
With regards to previous comments you saying about the tools being used to pilfer other bikes and the durability of the tools through the winter, I'm sure we're not the first people to use these things. I mean, what have other people's experiences been?
Yeah, that, and I don't know, but we can certainly check on it and see whether or not if it seems likely that it would need to be covered, then that would leave us with just the parking deck and possibly the porch of the co-op. Although I'm not sure if that, I don't know if that would really work because it might be perceived as part of the co-op. And it's Lincoln Square property, it's not city property, so.
Even at number 3, there's also a bit of an awning at the entrance. I forget whether the bike parking there are bike racks at number 3, and I can kind of not quite tell from the picture whether they're covered under that awning or whether the awning doesn't cover them at all.
I don't think it does.
Okay. So there may not be room for the fix-it under the awning, but if there were, that could give it a little shelter.
That too, under that awning, that is definitely part
Private.
of Lincoln Square. Further out is where where the street starts and going north, that is city right-of-way on both sides of the street.
Okay. I guess my gut reaction, if you're looking for numbers, my 2 favorites, if you had to ask me, would probably be number 1 and number 4. Just for the traffic and visibility, that hopefully on number 1, because we have bike lanes along Main Street, it would get some visibility as long as we could do some signage. And number 4 is the busiest place every single day of the week for bikes in downtown, I think. Even though the farmers market does get a huge weekend bike traffic jam, the library seems to have people coming and going every day, and since it's on a bus line and everything, it's very visible. And if people started to see there was a bike repair station, maybe they'd remember that, and then the day their bike broke down, they would think, oh, I think I saw something like that back at that location number 4. So If I had to try to guess, those would be the two. And I don't know, maybe there were only 3 of us here tonight, so maybe you didn't get a representative sample from
Right.
everybody, but hopefully maybe some of all this helps you narrow down at least
Mm-hmm.
what are the good locations and the stronger and the weaker ones, and kind of narrow down your list and get closer to a final choice.
It's possible that, and I don't know if either of you two know about this, if the parking deck, I know there was a lot of conversation about the fact that the bicycle parking in there also was not really utilized because it wasn't signed. So if that's going to already be planned to be signed in the new signage, then you might be able to just tack on a sign, tack onto that area, bike fix-it station as well, something like that. So that might make it a good location, Main Street. Yeah, I can check with Pat on that.
Just one final comment. If you wanted a least favorite, I would go with number 3. I mean, that would get probably the least amount of just people walking past. Say, oh, look,
Mhm.
a bike repair station.
Yeah, it's also not it's not a very attractive location.
And it may change. There's still discussion in the downtown plan of closing that to car traffic and turning it into a little outdoor plaza, amphitheater, something kind of space. Now, I don't know whether that'll ever come to pass because the post office would have to relocate first,
Mhm.
the U.S. post office, counter window. But, the shape of that could all be something different. And if there ends up being an amphitheater or something, that spot at number 3 could end up being like behind the stage or somewhere hidden, or who knows what if it turns into a band shell. I don't know. But that space could change in ways that makes it even less
Right.
visible, and with even fewer people kind of passing by that location. So I agree that number 3 is probably a weak choice.
Okay.
That's a hard choice, though.
Yeah.
But I hope some of our thoughts were helpful as you try
Mhm.
to narrow it down. The weather thing is definitely a key question.
It
Yeah.
doesn't need to be, I know that, but I would assume it is better for
Yeah.
longer lasting. We are ordering a coating on it that would make it more resistant to the type of weather that we have here.
Okay.
But I would assume still that being covered would be
Yeah.
better.
Yeah, if freezing water gets inside the little hex
Right.
wrench set or something and busts it wide open,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
if that ends up being a factor for other cities, that could really narrow down the list.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. True.
Are there any other thoughts about these locations? Any other feedback you want Rebecca to take into account as she works on this further? Okay, this is really exciting. I love the idea of bike repair stations around town.
Yeah.
And we should add those to the bike map,
Yes. Yeah.
which, I don't know, Gary, do you know when the next printing?
Well, I mean, we were thinking every 2 years, but we need to see how much things have changed and
Yeah,
how much time people have to work on it and
Yeah.
going to do it, so.
yeah. Whenever we're ready, I mean, I know the city contributed a very small amount, but made a financial contribution, and we should just be ready to budget for that again. I think it was only a few $1,000s, but it went a long way in terms of helping get all those maps printed. So when we're ready to do it, let's make sure these are on the map, because this is a
Yeah.
real amenity.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Thanks for working on that, Rebecca.
Mm-hmm.
Last is the Light the Night event.
So this is just an announcement that we have set the date. For those of you that don't know, the Light the Night event is it's hosted by CATS, which is the Campus Area Transportation Study, along with CU Safe Routes to School Project, the Bike Project, and Champaign County Bikes. And they install bike light sets, the front and rear blinky lights, for free on 2 locations on campus. And last year, I think there were 1,000 light sets. This year, there will be 800. And just looking for the date. September 15th, thank you. I don't even think I printed this year's information. I've got last year's information. September 15th, and the locations are the same as last year. The location in Urbana is Lincoln and Illinois. So it's right on the corner of Lincoln and Illinois. And it starts at 4 p.m. and goes until 8 p.m. And the other location in Champaign, actually it's also in Urbana now that I think about it. It's at Wright and Green. And at both locations, so we install the light sets, and we don't just give them out, we actually install them to make sure they really are being used. And then it's also a wonderful opportunity to give out the bike maps and tell people about the different bicycle amenities that we have in the community. So to talk about the safety education video that we have and where people could find that, to show the rules of the road that are on the back of the bike map and all those different things. And because it's for free, you actually get people who come out and listen to you, which is exciting. So we did talk about this year that there would be a third location, and that would be at the County Market, the old Burnham site in Champaign. And so that the idea of that is that it would reach a larger audience as well, and it's still part of, it's still in the campus area, and so still covered by CATS. So we're working on that. We need to have a third location, we would need another pool of volunteers, and so we're working on seeing if we could get some of the different organizations that provide volunteers in the community to work on that with us. So we'll figure out that within the next few weeks.
Okay, great. Any questions or feedback about the Light the Night plans? I've saved it on my calendar here, and I hope you all do too, so that we can get a crew of volunteers out there. Is there any support you need, Rebecca, other than just warm bodies to show up and put on those lights that night?
That's pretty much it. The bike project provides a lot of the volunteers, but it's also really very helpful, I think, to have people that, such as the members of this commission, who can talk to people while they're going through and having their bike worked on, because it really is, it's a fantastic opportunity to, there's no other event that we have in town that we kind of have 10, 15, 20 minutes of people captive while they're waiting for something that they want to be doing. And so it's a wonderful opportunity to talk to them, and the bike project, they're busy installing them. They don't necessarily have time to talk to people about different bicycle information and safety and education things that we have going on. So also having people that could do the talking, not just installing.
Great.
Very useful.
Good. Okay. Any final thoughts or questions on that one? None? Okay, that is the end of our business items tonight. Are there any announcements or any big bike events or dates or things people wanted to share before we adjourn?
Let's see. What are the dates for that? We are having a bike rodeo that's put on by the CU Safe Routes to School project, and you also have the date of that in front of you? That's September 17th. Right.
Saturday?
That's at the Market at the Square. It'll be in the same location as the one we had in the spring. For people that don't know, a bike rodeo is a basic skills event for children, and it's for, there will be some activities for older children. It'll be in the parking lot that is directly to the south of the Farmers Market, and it'll be from 9 to noon on September 17th. And it is free, so we do have some bicycles and helmets, so you don't actually need to bring your own, but everyone's welcome, of course, to bring their own. And there will be skills for some older children at this one as well. And that one we could also use volunteers to help with that. That would be very useful. If anyone would like to volunteer for any of those events, you could just send me an email. That would be great. And then we also have the Walk and Roll to School Day, which is on October 5th. And that you'll be hearing more about that. So that is, again, by CU Safe Routes to School, and getting elementary school students to walk and bicycle to school.
Okay. Great. October 5. Any other announcements or questions? Gary? What else?
Keeping track of all this stuff that's going on with biking in the community, I put together a Google calendar to try to coordinate all this stuff. So if you go to, and I'm trying to create sort of a brand name for the whole community biking called See You Biking. You know, See You Biking. And there was some talk of doing a logo, but we'll see how that goes. But this is called seeyoubiking.notlong.com. That's sort of a, it'll direct you to the Google Calendar. And all these events are already on there. And the idea is to give access to city people, CCB, Bike Project, and they can just put their special events, not their weekly rides, not their hours, but special things, and get it on there so that we'll have one space for all of these things. And so that's the hope. We could talk about this at the CCB meeting on Thursday to see if that's going to fly or not. But
Cool.
I think, so it's anyway, it's there. seeyoubiking.notlong.com, one word, See You Biking. And that could be really useful, I think.
Mm-hmm. Rebecca? Yeah.
Is it possible on using a Google Calendar like that to have agencies or links or different organizations? So, like, could you have something going around the page that would link you through to, if you want more information, go here for the Bike Project, go here for Bike Urbana, go here for...
every event, there is
Would
a
click
notes
through.
field, and you can put anything you want in there.
Mhm.
So you can say to volunteer, go here. And you can't put actual live links in the, unfortunately, in the notes field, but you can put the URL, which somebody can copy out and just go to on their browser. Maybe that'll change too, but you can put it whatever you want. All the meetings I go to, I put all my notes in the notes fields by Google Calendar. That's where I keep them all. So I can easily find them and see what's going on, as long as I have Wi-Fi. So yeah, you can put all this kind of stuff. Another thing would be to then embed the calendar itself in a web page, and I do have reserved the CU Biking domain for, I haven't used it much, but then you can go in there. I'd like to probably do that as a Google page where people can, a number of people could update, but then you could put whatever you want on that and make it as a website. But right now, I just want to start off with a calendar. And we'll see what people think of that on Thursday, and then try to get people like you and all these, one or two at each organization or agency to be able to put stuff in there. You know, CCRPC and whatever they know is going on. And maybe even, I don't know, maybe even some of the webinars that happen that the different cities do on bicycle, often bicycle and ped stuff. I'm not quite sure if that should be there either. If there's too much stuff, then it's going to get too cluttered. But if there's special events, there's a breast cancer awareness ride coming up in September that Champaign Cycles is going to be doing. And so those types of things,
That's
I think would be
great.
nice. Because there's a lot happening, I mean,
Totally.
in the community. But hard to find it all.
Mm-hmm. Okay, then I think we are adjourned. I will remind people our next meeting will be, we will probably cancel the August meeting, from what I understand, and our next meeting would then be the third Tuesday of September. That's September 20th, same time, same place. And we'll do the minutes that we didn't approve tonight, we'll put on that meeting agenda. Since we never really got the whole quorum, I think a lot of people must not have survived biking or walking to this meeting in the heat, maybe.
I
But
understand.
we'll be back on September 20th. So thanks, everybody. This is adjourned.